last month. There's a photo there. So for winter services, the main one, obviously, that you see us out there providing is snow and ice removal. So we remove snow and ice from pretty much all roads within the town of Webster. So town, county, and state roads within the town limits. We do that for the state and county via intermunicipal agreements where they essentially pay us or reimburse us for the efforts that we spend within our towns. It's nice because it can keep a relatively consistent level of treatment across all of those roads within our limits. The only road that's really an exception to that actually is physically within Webster is 104. Route 104 is a state highway that is maintained by state forces, so we do not deal with the snow and ice on those roads. Major topic right now, unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff around town, is pothole repair. So even though we plow and we remove snow and ice from the state and county roadways, we are not able to go out and do roadways repairs, pavement repairs like potholes. So any issues with potholes, road surface issues that aren't related to snow and ice fall under the responsibility of the agency that has jurisdiction over the road, which, like I said, in Webster, they're both state and county roads. There's lists of what specific roads those are on our website on the highway page. If you go to the roads section, there's a complete list of state and county roads that are within the town of Webster. There's a lot more county than state, but they are listed there. So if you're having an issue with a roadway, you're going to have a more efficient process to look them up, see what actual agency they're under, and contact them directly. However, if you do call us, we will help give you the information to contact them. We also contact them on your behalf, but don't usually have much different result in the issues being remedied. This season in particular, our sensible salting policy has been extremely important. There is a salt shortage across the Northeast, driven by a few factors. Some we're not fully aware of right now, but the main one is the amount of snow and ice that we have had this season. It's been significantly more than in the past few years, creating a situation where our program, which is extremely efficient with how we salt and where we salt, is very, very important. We've been tracking it very closely lately because supply has been very low. The picture on the left there is our basically current salt barn. I think there might be a little bit less because they're out there plowing right now. But we're getting shipments regularly every few days, but the supply there should be at least double what that is for us to really be comfortable. So we haven't gotten to a point where we have to really change what we're doing because we're so efficient to begin with. So the other key part of the sensible salting that we really want to stress to residents is that you do have to drive to the roadway conditions. We do not have a bare roads policy or anything of that nature. There will be times when there's snow on the roadways within the town, and you do have to adjust your driving to those conditions. They're given, especially some of the intensity of the storms that we've had, 2 inches, 3 inches an hour at times, and it takes us a few hours to get through an entire run. You're going to come across snow on the roadways. It's very, very important that you tailor how you're driving to those conditions. We will keep them clear and as safe as possible. But it really is a key factor to this is to make sure that you're driving, appropriately based on the condition of the road. During these really heavy storms, even if we were, putting double the product, you would still have those conditions. But we don't want to be wasteful for that. So those are the key factors around snow and ice that we wanted to stress to everybody because there is a lot of issues with these few topics at the moment. A couple other things that happen, we do a Christmas tree drop-off. So I took a picture of the sign and kind of where it is, and there's kind of a little tiny tree there, but we've had hundreds of trees come directly to the highway facility right at 1005 Picture Parkway. We chip those trees, grind them, and dispose of them. So it's a nice little thing. It's one of the only drop-offs that we do that isn't kind of a scheduled one throughout the rest of the year. So that is an option. A lot of people use it. It's great to see people coming down there. Took a picture of the sign because people have trouble finding it sometimes, even though the sign is located directly when you come into the facility. But if you're looking for that, if you happen to still have a Christmas tree, feel free to bring it down. We do continuously throughout the year look at drainage. It's one of the services we offer across the board for the town. And in the winter months, there can be different things like ice damming and things of that nature that we'll go out and address. Some things we'll put on a schedule to be completed during the summer months. Other things we will deal with at that time. Another time, if you see water near your house or in the street that seems like a large volume, it can also be water main breaks and things of that nature. So we would like you to call in and let us know anything you see like that. And then we do offer courtesy mailbox repair and replacement if needed. We had some very heavy icing and wet snow the other day that unfortunately when that stuff comes off the plow, it can cause some damage. So we have intermittent issues with that, but we are able to offer that courtesy repair and replacement. The other guidelines for that are on our website. So that's the majority of the stuff that we offer during the winter that I wanted to touch on, because we are right in the thick of it, mostly the snow and ice removal, but a little bit of everything. So now on to a little bit more of the exciting part, the existing highway building that we've been under construction for a little less than 18 months on. We are substantially complete on that building. So we had our C of O, our certificate of occupancy that allows us to occupy the building, was on 2/14 last Friday. Our plan is to move our 24 main trucks that'll go in the facility that you see in the picture is the parking bay of the new facility. We're looking to do that by tomorrow, but with all this snow, we were a little behind on exactly getting things tuned up. So it'll be within a few days. We didn't have as much time this week to kind of do the final prep that we need to do now that the space can be occupied. And then we would have our 40 operational staff hopefully move next week, 2/25, around that period. We have a plan of attack with our IT department to switch over all of the computers so that our data and call system will function out of the new building on 2/28. And that would allow the rest of our office admin staff, including myself, to be functioning out of this facility by 3/3. So we're very, very excited to finally be able to put some dates to this. There's always last minute things that might shuffle these by a day or two, but I'm really pushing to be in there. Some of the things we've discussed about the existing building have continued to become more intense over the 18 months we've been under construction. So some of the conditions in the building are really getting to a point where we need to make the move, especially now that the building's in kind of the state you see it there, which is pretty great at this point. So as we get to substantial completion of the project, we wanted to review the budget again. Last time we were here, it was in good shape. We've been able to maintain that situation. I used basically the same slide, but as we're this far along, we don't really need to carry any contingency because we believe we have any change orders that have come along tracked already into the cost. So you'll see the cost of the new building and the Cliff Jones upgrades is slightly higher than it was. That's because we've incorporated any change orders that happened, but then we were able to back out the contingency we had of it. So it brings us to a total around $21,364,348. Our original approved bond amount, $28,250,000. So we are currently tracking, as we're coming in the final stages of the project, about $6,885,652 under the bonded amount, which was the proposed budget. So we are actually slightly in a little bit better shape than we were the last time we were here for that update, because we've gotten to the end and we believe we have all of the costs tracked, so we can kind of solidify that down. So we've been able to maintain a pretty efficient budget throughout, which we're excited about also. That was our goal, and we're kind of getting to the point where we've achieved it. So excited about that as well. So the other part that we discussed for the next steps was what was going to happen at the existing building site. That building, for our purposes, is undersized, and portions of it are in fairly significant disrepair, mostly the parking bays of the existing main highway building that we have now. So some of these remain the same, and there's some additional information that's come up since the last time we were here. So we do have a salt barn portion that was in the original scope for the project that we would like to reconsider now, especially given the budgetary efficiencies we've been able to maintain. Replacing the salt barn at this time would allow for higher storage capacity, which is huge this time of year. In the off season, when there's no demand, we could stock up on the salt and not have as much of a worry as we do right now. The new higher capacity of the storage barn would get us much closer to having almost enough for an entire season stockpiled ahead of time, which would be a big factor right now when we have gotten dangerously low a couple of times. Luckily, we've got some good contacts around town, and we were able to work well with the state and our local supplier to make sure that we didn't have a problem, but we got much closer than I would ever prefer to be. So having that updated capacity really is an important one right now as we've gone through this winter. Obviously, the building will be more energy efficient and will have lower maintenance costs long term. Our current building does end up with a fair bit of annual maintenance since it was built, in the 80s. It's between 40 and 50 years old. The other portion of it that kind of came up over the past summer, more so and everything, looking at water quality, is a truck washout building. Currently, we do some of the bulk washout of our operational trucks in the summer outside, which doesn't really allow for that runoff from the trucks to get captured. So this isn't soapy water, it's just debris, sediment, things of that nature that come off the truck when they get back into the initial clean. We'd like to do a semi-enclosed building for that. This was one of the recommendations of our federal EPA audit that we had this summer when they came to our facility and saw trucks being washed out the way we have them now, was to have a facility like this. So we'd like to incorporate that into the Salt Barn project as well. Other portions, the plan was to demo the majority of our existing building, if not all of it. We have to leave a small portion for the fuel pump system, but then that demo would allow us to gain yard space back that we lost to the new building. It is a good-sized piece of property, but we do need yard space for operational things during the summer, and then if there is an event like an ice storm or different things like that, we need storage area to be able to accommodate those type of efforts as well. The new portion of this conversation is that the biggest area of issue with the existing building is actually the truck base, which is a steel frame structure with a flat roof that has a lot of structural issues. The actual office portion doesn't have structural issues, it's just undersized for our use. When it was built back in the late 60s, 1969, the staff was 18 people. Now we're 40. We're trying to be more than 40 in order to maintain the service level that we have. So it's not sized properly us, but it doesn't necessarily have all of the structural issues. So it's actually pretty sound structurally, the office portion. So we have had discussions over the past few months about a possible renovation to that existing office space to be incorporated as an animal control structure that would house our animal control staff and allow for storage of animals that we're required to have here in town. So we are in the early stages of reviewing that and working with Keith Mortimer and our other town staff to see if that's a feasibility. We're still in that feasibility stage of it, but it does seem like it might be possible. So that's just kind of some of the proposals for the existing building area. So this is some of the budgetary portion of that. Some of these have been adjusted since the last time I was here, mostly for just annual increases, material increases, wage increases. The wage situation is pretty significant when it comes to public work right now, so those increases year over year have been quite high, so I did make a couple of adjustments to these to make sure they were on the conservative side. But we have the salt barn, the truck washout portion, and then an incidental budget for things that might pop up that were unforeseen. The current total that we're projecting for that, estimating for that, is around $3,025,000. If you take the total of the current highway budget that we discussed on the earlier slide of $21,300,000 and change, if we were to do the $3 million to get the salt barn washout and washout building, we would still total for the project, which was the highway facility project, we would come in under the bond approval by about $3.8 million. So that's a big part of the reason that we want to look into these now. The earlier presentation I did went into some of the more specifics about the efficiencies, that materials only go up, labor only goes up. Now we have a good staff on hand right now to help with the construction management. That is a big key and was a big key to us maintaining the budget that we did. Working with campus and MRB have really allowed us to do that, so we would be able to kind of continue that partnership right into this effort here if we were to work on this now. So as far as next steps, if we did want to move toward that, the salt barn and truck wash building, the biggest next step would be to award the site and building design contract. We already received a proposal from MRB Group, who's the designer of the highway facility, to do this. I've reviewed it with Keith Mortimer, the town engineer, and Campus Construction. It does seem to be sound and probably the most efficient way to move forward. So we already have that scope in hand. We could potentially put a resolution on for the next board meeting on March 6th to have the supervisor sign that contract with him. We could start the design on the salt barn truck wash portion. If we were to do that, then we would want to revise the schedule. At this point, my goal would be to complete the design, which I already had a large portion of it completed during the design of the highway building because it was in the original scope. So it's really just completing that design, not starting it from scratch. The truck wash building will kind of have to be started from scratch, but it's a much smaller building, so it shouldn't add too much more time. If we could get that completed as early as possible in spring, we would still be able to have a 2025 start to the construction of this, which we think would help with a lot of efficiencies. During that process, if we move forward, we want to continue to coordinate our demolition scope for the salt barn project, which goes partially where the existing building is, with any continuation of pursuing our office spaces for animal control. So we'll need to coordinate that throughout the process. The picture we have on this one is the new break room, which is really coming out nice. We're going to be able to do training in there. It's much more conducive space to speaking to the group, coordinating with the group. What you see there is part of an island that goes with the kitchen that will allow everybody to warm up their food and without being on top of each other or waiting in line and that type of stuff. So it's coming out nice, finally getting to a finished state. And that is the majority of what I had for the update on the highway building. And this one here is a current picture of the exterior of the front of the building that people will drive up to when we get in there, hopefully in a couple of weeks. And it's also where we start questions and comments.
I noticed that you are, you have everything here, and also to congratulations that you get a wonderful project and you get it under, the amount that we anticipate to.
Thank you.
Which is good. But
Yeah.
we don't want to go all the way up to the, full amount of the bond.
Right.
Right? And there are a couple things in here that you have. I noticed you did not put in the animal control project into the salt barn washout and, at the end, the estimate budget?
That would
for the
be
future?
included in this budget, this project budget.
Well, I noticed that, so if we, because, initially you mentioned it up here for the site upgrade, right? For the salt barn, the truck washout, the yard, and the animal control. But when on the estimate budget that you plan to do for that, you did not add it in there. I'm just curious, so is that gonna be more if we, if we approve this?
Right, so I
But-
included it in the site upgrades because it's being considered on the site, but it won't be a part of this budget. So if that effort goes to renovate that building, it'll be a part of the animal control budget that would have to be addressed through the funding for the animal control portion. It wouldn't come out of this budget, so that's why I didn't include it in the section, is it's, the financial portion of it wouldn't be tied to the project. It's only tied to the project because it's in the same facility that we're already have the project started.
Okay.
So, yeah, the animal control budget would be separate from this, which means any expense for it would not be included in these numbers.
So that could be like more addition in the future for it, right? Is that what?
Yeah, I'm not heavily involved in the animal control
Okay. I'm just
process,
curious.
but yeah, it would be
No, it's a great
additional. It
question,
would all be
Denny.
additional to this.
I know
yeah.
that, we got awarded back April of last year a $400,000 Ags and Market
Yeah.
grant. And I'm glad that you didn't put it in here as a net or whatever, because you haven't been that involved in it.
Well,
And
we
I
also-
know that Keith and
yeah.
the crew are still trying to work through, like, well, if you design the cages and all that in that building, how much of that 400,000 is used for that? So it is a separate thing, but on the same token, it's almost a hybrid project, because that admin building, you'd have to keep it up anyway, if I remember, Pat, because you need the mechanicals for the gas bays to be enclosed inside. Is that correct?
Yeah, there'd be a small portion of it, right? So
Right.
what we're considering is leaving a larger portion of it standing to possibly be renovated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so I don't know if that,
I,
it's more of a visual thing, because, I mean, how big is the admin part of the old, the old?
I believe it's between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet. I haven't
that
measured
big?
out that portion. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
It incorporates a sign shop, and most of the offices out front would be the structural divide that we think, but we're still having
Right.
NRB look into that. So it's a little bit hard to say. So there's gonna be overlap in the scope slightly,
Yeah,
but it wouldn't look like incorporating the dollars into this. There'd be my scope to do whatever demolition portion, and I would stop that demolition.
Right.
And wherever I stop for this project is where the animal control renovation would take over, and that would be a separate
Right.
budget and bonded
Yeah,
effort.
yeah, I see the animal control as a separate capital project. Has its own grant. It's just great if we can use the building, that will save a lot of money.
yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see, but good question, Jay.
thank you.
It is a good question.
Yeah.
I have a question about events.
Events.
I haven't been to one of them, but the town of Arundecoit has public markets that are
Really?
inside their highway garage,
Mm-hmm.
and there's all that space.
There's a lot of space.
Is that a possibility, to have some kind of
For-
event market for,
For me, as long as it's not during operational hours, yeah, it's a town-owned space. The rest of the coordination of it, I'm not sure what that would entail. But operationally, yeah, especially in the summer months, it's possible for us to put the trucks outside for a day or two, or a Saturday or something. Or in the winter. In the winter, it'd be tougher, because you
Right,
don't,
of course,
the whole
yeah.
purpose of it is to not have the stuff outside, and there is 24 trucks that'll go in there. So there'd be some logistical stuff, but it's not
I
out of
don't
the
know how
question.
they do it in Arundecoit, I haven't been to it.
That's news to
but
me, that's
it's,
pretty interesting.
Yeah, it'd be something interesting to look into. Absolutely.
I'll have to go one of these days to figure
Yeah,
out.
I wasn't aware of that either.
Maybe I'm making things up. I'm going by what my sister
No,
told
because
me,
I
so-
walk by the, when I walk with my mother, she lives in Arundecoit, we walk by the town hall all the time, and they do a lot of things at that town hall campus, a lot of public markets and all that. I did not know that they did stuff in the DPW garage in Arundecoit that was
I
a
could-
farmer's market or
I
whatever,
could be totally wrong, but I do,
Interesting.
I actually reached out to Rory about it, about getting a spot at one time.
Yeah.
So I,
Well, the two things
It's
I would
a
say is
thing.
that this is very interesting, and heck, you know, on one hand, look into it, Jennifer, see what they do. And then the second thing is, I think we, you know, may want to be cautious about copying anything that Arundecoit's doing at this point. Anyway,
One of the other things
well,
that I've,
not
you know what,
everything
that
is
was, you
horrible.
know,
one of the other things that I've heard done in some of the highway facilities is, for example, the drug take-back days,
yes.
where they're inside, and then the cars can just drive through, drop off the drugs, collect them right there, and then drive right out, the same way the trucks would be entering and exiting the building. So that's another thing that we could possibly look into in the future.
Yeah, so it's pretty great. It'll be neat. So this year we are hosting, we alternate with Penfield on hosting the hazardous waste drop-off in coordination with the county. So that'll be in this facility this year. And then every year annually, we do the free rabies clinic in coordination with our animal
There you
control
go.
staff in the building. So those will both probably function like that. And this year it'll be
Sure.
different. In the past, we open up the bays and everybody kind of walks through. But especially on the rabies clinic, if they could stay in their cars with some of those, their animals that might not be used to being around other animals,
Sure.
it might be really beneficial. So yeah,
Yeah.
this'll
But
function.
it's funny, Jen and Patty bring up an interesting point that we have these new facilities at Highway and now soon to be at Sewer. What opportunities does that open up for things that we would have never thought to do at the old highway garage?
Yeah.
Or at the old sewer plant, admin, so it'll be interesting to see. I wanted to just rattle off very quick, I got some comments and one question, I think. And I'm going in page order, so my first comment is, on that pothole repair, especially on county and state roads. As you might imagine, you know, we get pinged about that a lot from the citizens, and one of the worst things I hate doing is passing the buck.
Yeah.
It's fingernails on a chalkboard for me to say, we aren't allowed to go and fix those potholes on state and county roads. I gotta tell you, Pat, in the last couple of years, has come up with some very creative ways to approach the Monroe County and the New York State Department of Transportation. And I'm gonna use the slang term of he's approached them with, we could do proactive money out of the state and the county, tying into our IMAs for plowing, where the town DPW or highway department goes and fills those potholes and then bills them back. You can either pay us, county and state, that way, or you'll pay us 10 times as much when one of his plow blades chips on one of those. And I thought that was a good way to approach them, and they were open to that, I thought, Pat, but we ran into the bureaucratic, it had to go up 9 levels, and I don't know if we ever got any answer on that.
No, there's a process. The closest we got, the county, we do some summer restoration work with, so they're a little more open to that type of stuff. Not so much with potholes, but other things. With the state, they have a much more lengthy process to connect with that. There are some shared services agreements sometimes where they will pay for materials for different things, and then we could potentially use those materials for town roads, and it kind of
Right.
becomes a balance. So we're still working on that. We still haven't really got a great answer. It is frustrating to, we'll go out and fix anything that's on our roads, which we've done 2 or 3 times this winter because the
Yeah.
potholes have been worse than normal, I believe,
Yeah.
mostly because of the worst winter conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And not be able to go up there and do those certain sections when we were already kind of going along is difficult, but we are still working with them to
Sure.
establish an avenue that works for both parties without basically stepping too far outside our lines
Right.
and spending
Right.
tax dollars where they're not supposed to be spent is really what it comes down to.
I
And
said-
it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I didn't want to come across, I
Yeah.
by no means want to throw the MC-DOT or the NYS-DOT under the bus. They've been great.
They're very good
What,
partners,
the
yeah.
250 getting repaved last year, I mean, they are good partners. That one's frustrating because we know point of sale, we could get out there and fill those things immediately. But we're just, we're not at that point. with
Yeah,
it yet.
it's very difficult. So state DOT specifically, right? So
Yeah.
there has to be a priority to things. They have to address the things on the 55-mile-an-hour roads first.
Yeah.
And most of the ones that we have in Webster are 50 or under.
Yeah.
And when you're seeing stuff on the roads where the speed is higher, there's much greater danger. They have to address those first.
Yeah.
Before they come on to some of the other roads where we see more of these conditions. They have no choice. Staffing is still an issue across the board. I know they have
Yeah.
the same issues that we do. I've been working for almost 4 years now to get the staff number up to a certain number, and we haven't gotten it to the number I want to be at.
Yeah.
You're very aware of that when we discuss budgets. I've been targeting the same number for a while, and I know they have the same or worse conditions, so it's,
Sure.
that's the part of it. That's my only thing with, they are a good partner in different things, but those are the challenges they're up against. It's not just, we don't feel like coming out today by any means.
Right.
So I kind of feel for them in that sense, but
And I said I'd rattle these off, so hopefully that
Yeah.
is the longest one. The second comment on that page, and Pat said it, on our website, it shows, if you want, citizens want to see, well, what are the state and county roads? You can go see it, but for the most part, it's your main arteries.
yeah, the bigger.
You think of the grid system, running north and south, Bay, 5 Mile Line Road, Holt, 250, Phillips, and then east to west, your Clems, your Ridge. Those main arteries are for the most part state and or state or county roads, in majority county. Like I
Correct.
said. Comment on the next page, the courtesy mailbox repair and replacement. This was something I learned a couple years ago that kind of surprised me. I think most citizens think that if they see their mailbox get knocked off, oh, that driver, didn't see it and clipped it with the blade. That is not the case. The power of that snow shooting against that mailbox. It's not the blade. It's the power, and that snow is heavy with salt and all that. Is that correct, Pat? That's what usually is what blasts the mailbox?
Yes, the vast majority of the mailboxes that are damaged are from the snow coming off the plow, not the actual steel plow. That's correct. Yep.
Which I know when I've been out with people and they talk about that, it's been dozens of times. They're incredulous to that. They're like, really? I'm like, it's not the blade.
Yeah.
Then I had a comment, on the existing highway building site upgrades. when you were in here a couple months ago and somewhat showed the same thing, that, you know, when we get done with the main building, you had shown the board that, you know, maybe we should look at this salt barn for the reasons you gave, and the truck washout building, the EPA. And at that time, we mentioned how Barry Dean, the previous highway superintendent, and I think a pretty respected person in this community, he came over and walked through this with you and kind of looked at it, and I know that he called me and he said, "You got to do it," and that was that was a pretty good endorsement. So, and I don't know if the board members remember we said that that Barry had looked at it. I had a comment. Well, I don't think I have to. Well, yeah, the animal control facility. Actually, Ginny, you hit the nail on the head. You know, I wanted to clarify that. I know why it's not in your budget. We already talked about that, but yeah, and I said the comment was that the gas bays need an enclosed mechanicals. So we're going to have some building. Might as well use that building. The only question I had, I'm done with comments. I think I'm done with comments. My question, and it doesn't have to be answered today, because it's probably a hybrid. Paul is our finance director and Kyle is our legal counsel, that we did this bond resolution 2 or 3 years ago for $28,250,000, and in the scope of it, certainly, I think Salt Barn was in there. I know that the truck washout wasn't. How does that affect any bond revisions? We know we're never gonna hit 28 million, but the fact that the scope of what we had might not have met it, is it because it's this capital project that it's much ado about nothing as far as a resolution and a revision of a bond resolution?
Are you saying, are you worried that some of these items might not be covered within the original bond resolution and the description?
You're a lot more succinct than me. That's, I guess, I just, you know, the devil's in the details, and that's why I
that's
said
what
it doesn't
you're
have to be answered tonight, but as we move forward on this, you know, I would just want to make
We have to
sure.
make sure.
Pardon?
We have to make sure the wording is
Right.
appropriate.
Actually,
Which I
there
think
was
it is.
one other,
Yeah.
yeah.
It should be very close.
I did have one other comment. You know, as on the next steps, which is the page with the break room, you know, Pat shows that, you know, a schedule that would start the next board meeting. And I've said this before, that as the town board moves forward with these things and you stare at a number of $3 million, when we start that process of design and all that, we have not committed to $3 million. And if the bids come back and all of a sudden to build this salt barn is $5 million, well, the town board would say, we're not moving forward with that. We actually just went through this similar with, I hate to say it, the Sandbar Park restaurant building.
Right.
It came in higher. That's the beauty of the bid process. We can talk all day long about estimates and things like that. At the end of the day, the rubber hits the road when those bids come in. You open them in the low bid. You know, we've been very fortunate up to this point that our estimates were $28 million for the scope of things. We knew the day we opened those bids that it looks like we were going to probably come in about $5 million, you know, better, because the bids came in less than what the estimated cost of the 4 contracts were, the general contracting, the whatever. I think Pat and Campus Construction and the engineers and designers, all that, it's a team effort that they knocked off another $1.8 million from that through the management of the project. Jen, I know that you went to a couple of those owner meetings, and you know, to see Pat at the table with Campus Construction and the engineers and whatever, that was a real think tank meeting where you guys were, you know, really hammering down on details, and the net effect of that is you came in $6.8 million under budget. It's pretty amazing. So I'll get off my soapbox.
I don't really have any questions. First of all, Pat, I want to thank you for your time today. I toured the new facility. It's incredible. It's just amazing. And And I want to thank you for your conservative approach to this project by pulling the salt barn out of the original project. Even though we had looked at the scope and including it, you wanted to be more conservative. Let's see where we land with the overall building as it goes up. And I certainly recognize the fact that we do need a new salt barn. I will not be here on the March 6th, for the March 6th meeting. I just want to say that I won't have an opportunity to vote on that, but I am in complete support of moving forward with this.
Well, I think, Kyle, the law says we can't start the regular board meeting early, but we can start it late. So it's 7:38 right now. I think we're done with the workshop, and I think, Anne Marie, we have to stop the tape, take a 2-minute break, and we'll be back with the regular scheduled board meeting. So, good night, everybody. That's the
So I
end of
was
our workshop.
wrong. There's a market shed out behind the garage. Does that sound more familiar?